What is the best not safe for work Christmas joke you know? A middle-aged woman goes to a tattoo parlor and asks the tattoo artist to tattoo Thanksgiving on the inside of one of her thighs, and Christmas on the inside of the other thigh. The tattoo artist is curious about this and asks, why such an odd request? The woman tells him, my husband always complains that there's nothing good to eat between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Husband's reaction, leftovers again? A guy decides to buy his new girlfriend a pair of gloves for Christmas. After all, they've only been dating for 3 weeks, so it seems like the ideal gift, romantic, yet not too personal. He asks the girlfriend's younger sister to accompany him to buy them, then she can point out a pair she'd like. They go to the mall and the sister points out a pair of white gloves which the guy then buys. The sister then picks up a pair of panties for herself and buys them. But during the wrapping, the clerk mixes up the parcels. As a result, the sister gets the gloves and the guy takes home a gift box containing the panties. Without checking, the guy rushes the gift to his sweetheart, but only after drafting this loving and helpful note to accompany it. I chose these because I notice you are not in the habit of wearing any when we go out in the evening. If it had not been for your sister, I would have chosen the long ones with the buttons, but she wears the short ones that are easier to remove. There's another version of this joke where he also states that the clerk showed him different ways of wearing them and his favorite method was turned down, so a little fur shows. Bet you can't wait to slip your fingers into these. Why did a snowman drop his pants? He heard the snowblower was coming by. Christmas was coming and little Johnny's mom and dad took him to the mall to see Santa Claus. Johnny walked up and sat on Santa's lap and said, Santa, for Christmas I want a goddamn new baseball bat and I want it to be put under my goddamn bed. I want a goddamn new baseball glove, and I want it put under the goddamn Christmas tree. And Santa, I want a goddamn new bike and I want it put under a goddamn tarp in the goddamn shed. Santa, in complete shock, pulled little Johnny's parents aside and said, in all my years, I have never seen a little boy with such a foul mouth. His parents replied, we know, but we have no idea what to do about his behavior. We've tried everything. Santa thought about it and said, here's what we'll do to teach him a lesson. Every place that Johnny asked for a present, we'll put a pile of dog poop. The parents agreed to try Santa's plan. On Christmas morning, little Johnny woke up and immediately looked under his bed. Seeing the pile of poop, he ran downstairs to the Christmas tree and checked underneath. Finding another pile of poop under the tree, he ran out the door and threw open the shed door. Finding a tarp in the shed, he quickly pulled back the tarp and found yet another pile of poop. Johnny walked out of the shed and started looking all around the yard. After a while his parents asked him sarcastically, so little Johnny, what did you get for Christmas? Without missing a beat, Johnny looked at his parents and said, I think I got a goddamned dog, but I can't find the motherfucker. I knew I'd find this one. Told it to my parents last year and I think I underestimated how they would react to the punchline. Why doesn't Santa have any kids of his own? He only comes down the chimney. And that's just once a year. Yeah, but he comes down a lot of chimneys on that day. But the brown-nosed reindeer, he could fly just as well as all the others. He just couldn't stop as fast. The version I heard was about Randolph the brown-nosed reindeer. He's getting drunk at a bar and tells the bartender his sad story about the time he couldn't stop on an icy roof and his nose went right up Rudolph's, well, you know. Rectum? Rectum? I damn near killed him. I got my wife a pair of slippers and a dildo. If she doesn't like the slippers, she can go fuck herself. I liked the longer version in The Sopranos. Ends the same way, A rich man and a poor man have the same wedding anniversary. They're both at Madison Avenue shopping for their wives. Poor man says to the rich man, "What did you get your wife this year?" He says, "A Mercedes and a huge diamond ring." The poor man says, "Why'd you get her both?" The rich man says, "If she doesn't like the ring, she can take it back to store in her new car, come home and still be happy." The poor man says, "Okay, that works." The rich man says, "Well, what did you get your wife?" The poor man says, "A pair of slippers and a dildo." The rich man says, "Why'd you get her a pair of slippers and a dildo?" The poor man says, "If she doesn't like the slippers, she can go fuck herself." It was the night before Christmas, and all through the house, nothing was stirring, not even a mouse. I should have bought a carbon monoxide alarm. Should leave a post-it note. Two convicts had just been placed in cells beside each other on death row. Convict number 1 looks at convict number 2. Convict number 1, "What got you sent here?" Convict number 2, "I held up a convenience store and shot the clerk when he tried to pull a gun on me." You? Convict number 1 says, "Well, last Christmas Day my wife was working a double and all our kids were being little shits, yelling, cussing, breaking stuff. You know, like the little bastards do. So I couldn't take it and called my mother-in-law for advice. She told me to go out to the garage, get a bunch of empty boxes, wrap them up all pretty like with bows, and set them down under the tree, then whenever a kid misbehaved grab one and throw it into the furnace. So I did." Convict number 2, "What's that got to do with your being sent here?" Convict number 1, "I ran out of kids." Anakin Skywalker has entered the chat. On the first Christmas morning, the three wise men walk into the manger. The first one steps in donkey shit, looks at his shoe and exclaims, "Jesus Christ." Mary looks up at Joseph and says, "That's a better name than Keith." This is so fucking stupid and I love it. The name Keith always makes me laugh, regardless of the context. I adopted a kitten from a shelter years ago. His shelter name was Keith. I named him Maxwell. Every year, I get an email from the microchip company asking, "Is Keith's information up to date?" And every time, I pause for a few seconds and think, who the fuck is Keith? What an awful name for a kitten. Why was Dad upset that he got a sweater for Christmas? Because he wanted a screamer or a moaner. Best one of the bunch. I told it to my dirty old man co-worker and he got a belly laugh. I picture him with greasy hair and a stained rugby shirt. I picture him as a happy man, smile wrinkles, and a big white beard. 3 men died on Christmas Eve and were met by Saint Peter at the pearly gates. In honor of this holy season, Saint Peter said, "You must each possess something that symbolizes Christmas to get into heaven." The first man fumbled through his pockets and pulled out a lighter. He flicked it on. "It represents a candle," he said. "You may pass through the pearly gates," Saint Peter said. The second man reached into his pocket and pulled out a set of keys. He shook them and said, "They're bells." Saint Peter said, "You may pass through the pearly gates." The third man started searching desperately through his pockets and finally pulled out a pair of women's panties. Saint Peter looked at the man with a raised eyebrow and asked, "And just what do those symbolize?" The man replied, "They're carols." I used to work in a nursing home and a 90-year-old woman told me this joke on Christmas Eve. Now it's my favorite Christmas joke. Thanks for posting it. A 17-year-old male walks into a drugstore. He says, "I've been invited to Christmas dinner at my new girlfriend's house. Afterwards I hope there is a chance I get lucky, you know what I mean." Clerk, "How about condoms then? They could come in handy. Here's a pack." The young man, after paying, walks to the door, stops, smiles, comes back. "You know what, the mom is also smoking hot. I think I'll take another pack, just in case I get extra lucky." Christmas Eve comes around, the boy sits at the dinner table and doesn't say a word. After a while his girlfriend says, "If I had known you were so quiet, I wouldn't have invited you." The young man replies, "If you had told me your dad works at a drugstore, I wouldn't have come."